Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any changes to be made to the agenda? All right. Chair, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Vice Chair Rowland, seconded by Commissioner Teoflack. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. On to the consent agenda. We have the fire chief's vacation request, claim vouchers totaling $749,732.61, and a payroll summary and authorization for July of 2023. Chair, I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Moved by Commissioner Teoflack, seconded by Vice Chair Rowland. Any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. On to approval of the meeting minutes from June 13th work session. Commissioner Teoflack moves to approve the meeting minutes from June 13th. Is there a second? Seconded by Vice Chair Rowland. Any discussion? None appearing. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say nay. Motion carries. On to introductions. All right. So page 40, we have some information. Start off with Paula Swisher from the City of Briar. You are the city administrator.
My official title is clerk treasurer.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. And then we have Jesse Hoffman, Public Works Director for the City of Mountlake Terrace. And sitting next to our liaison who's been with us for about a year now, Liaison Todd. So what's your retirement date? If you're counting it down.
Of the election.
Okay, the November general. So basically Thanksgiving.
Yeah, something like that.
Because 21 days after the election.
Yeah.
So it's usually on the 24th. So welcome, Paula and Jesse. I'm pretty sure you guys have been watching the YouTube videos, getting all caught up on the personalities and so forth.
For those online and on the recording, you want to introduce them in their new role?
They're the liaisons for the City of Briar and the City of Mountlake Terrace. I'm sorry, I skipped over that part when I mentioned that you worked for the various cities. Since you guys elected, your citizens elected to come join the RFA, you guys are the appointed representatives until the next election cycle here in a couple of years. So we will see you for a while and get to know you. We've always valued Liaison Todd's input, so look forward to you guys' 2 cents.
It'd be 4 cents. 2 times 2 is 4.
This is true.
Are you saying that we have the 6 cents right now?
Maybe. Yeah, 6 cents.
Commissioners, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I do. I think it's be great for you guys to give us a little background. How long you been with the city? Was the real work and all this stuff. First of all, I want to send my personal welcome with you guys. I don't know, Paula, apart from that, we have RFA discussion, God, almost all this time, and I'm so glad that you guys finally joined the South County Fire, be part member, and I do expect you guys have a lot of inputs because we need as much idea as we need. Thank you, Paula. And
thank you. I'm Paula Swisher. I am the city clerk treasurer for the City of Briar. I have been there for 20 years.
oh, gee. You survived Bob Kalinas.
I did survive Bob Kalinas.
He's my good friend anyway.
Yes, but he was my mentor for a good 14 and a half years. You know, while my title holds 2 roles, I am also IT risk management, HR. I don't know. My hands are in a lot of things in the city, so I have a lot of different perspectives on things. I don't know what else you want to know about me. I was already asked for a bio and I'm like, I have no idea what to put in that. So I'm just happy to be here and represent the citizens of Briar and the council. And, you know, we're really glad that we finally got into the RFA, and, you know, the talks years ago
Right.
about it. It would have been nice to have joined back then.
Yeah.
But now that we're in there, we're looking forward to our partnership continuing just on a different level.
Right. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You'll be happy to know that we just passed a security audit. 2 of them? Did we pass both of them now?
The private one, yeah, but
I think we're still in the middle of the second one, so we're gonna get a second opinion like a good doctor, but so far so good.
My name's Jesse Hoffman. I'm the Public Works Director for Mount Lake Terrace, and I've been in Mount Lake Terrace for a little over a year. Since last May, I'm honored to serve with you guys in a non-voting capacity to represent the people of Mount Lake Terrace. Thank you.
Just how long you been with Mount Terrace?
For a little over a year now.
Over a year now. So you guys must be really busy with the light rail coming in and on the roads and all that stuff.
We're very busy. Thank you, Commissioner Chan.
No, I just no, because I know Mount Terrace for a long time. Well, our chief is came from there, right? You probably see a lot of changes in there. And
Yeah, I don't know what employee number you are, Mr. Hoffman, but I'm 0268 in Mount Lake Terrace. That was my number. So somewhere between you and yeah, that was me.
So where do you work before? Is it public work too?
I was doing facilities work for a college as an assistant director, and then before that, I was the head electrician at an international airport for a number of years at SFO.
By the way, you get your city hall is beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, it really is. That was our previous assistant city manager who really led the charge on that, and he did a fantastic job. Really beautiful building.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for anybody. Any other commissioners have questions? Vice Chair Rowland?
I just wanted to know if
This is
there's
just
anything.
Commissioner Furhoff on the line. Can you guys hear me?
We can. Yes.
Just wanted to say welcome aboard. Unfortunately, I cannot log in because of remoteness and some internet issues, but welcome aboard to one and all. Thank you very much for participating.
Thank you, Commissioner Fahrenhoff.
I was just gonna ask if there's anything that you guys have brought from either of your respective city councils or any concerns or anything you wanted to just at least get on a future agenda.
Not at this time.
All right.
No, my grandfather was a fire lieutenant in San Francisco. I appreciate everything the fire department does, and I'm proud that I was picked to serve in this function for the time that I'll be here.
Welcome.
Thank you. On to public comment. I didn't see anybody sign up for public comment here. Is there anybody online?
I don't have anybody requesting.
Okay, then we will go on to the fire chief's report.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, commissioners, guests, and welcome liaisons. It's a special day for staff that, you know, all of us have put in a lot of work. And I recall Mr. Todd and Ms. Swisher being part of the RFA discussions well over a decade ago. And Mr. Hoffman, just meeting you now, it's really important for me. And one of the things that I've really looked forward to in my 28 years here, being an employee of Mount Lake Terrace and Briar since 1996, coming to this organization, Fire District 1 in 2001, getting the contract we had in 2005, and now seeing you both here sitting tonight is great. So welcome to you. And I've always appreciated your great work, Mr. Todd, and we'll miss you whenever you choose to leave us. So transitioning from that, National Night Out is tonight, commissioners. And one thing that we've talked about many times and I've heard is a little bit of the scheduling conflict that happens with our regular meetings. And now that we have 5 cities within our RFA, many times it conflicts with staff's opportunity to outreach with the public, which is happening with our on-duty crews, as well as the chiefs that are here today, as well as commissioners. So one thing that I've talked about with staff, and we humbly recommend that you consider maybe for next year, is thinking about outreach for the commissioners, not having a meeting such as today or rescheduling it so we could have more interaction with the public. We appreciate Ms. Coyne being here, but frequently she's the only person that's here. And at the National Night Out events at our cities and the county, there's so many opportunities for us to really talk with people that are parts of our community. So something to consider for next year. And thank you for listening. Commissioners, as you know, 3 of our firefighters deployed to the West Hallett fire last night, and that's in the Cheney Spokane area. We know that they're already working very hard, and we wish them safe travels there back, and we appreciate their hard work on behalf of the RFA working outside of our borders. If there's any updates to provide, those will be provided by Chief Maxwell. As you know, he's going to be running the commissioner meeting next week as Chief Eastman and I will be gone. Okay. And Lori, do you have a picture of the event at the Briar City Hall you could post? So commissioners, what you're seeing right now is outside Briar City Hall, a letter of appreciation and acknowledgement of PUD employees who reported in very quick order a residential fire that happened in Briar. I responded to the event along with some of the other chiefs. And if these people hadn't made that early call and the great, quick, hard work by the crews that responded, really could have had another fatality fire on our hands. So we really want to thank those PUD employees for their hard work. And with that, Lori, you can bring that down, and I'm going to turn this over to Chief Maxwell to talk with the commissioners and our guests about the event at Station 10 today.
Do you want to turn your mic on?
Yeah, we had we've done this informally, but we've started a formal recognition process for when we have people help save lives in our community. And we've done that for many years, but we've actually now created a really neat community lifesaver coin because we know when they intervene in those minutes before we can get there, it makes a huge difference. So we recognized the wife of a gentleman. They woke up in the middle of the night and he was a 30-year-old father of 2. And he went into cardiac arrest, and the wife did CPR. We got there and we actually got him back and lost him 3 different times, but we're able to keep him alive. And we went and met with him and his whole family at Station 10 today. It was just an incredible experience. He is sharp as a whip. He's fully functioning, full cognition, and 2 cute little boys and a wife that are just very appreciative of everything that we did, and we were able to show our appreciation back for her doing her part as well. So it was a really neat. It's very moving to see 2 little boys that won't have to say, my dad died when I was 5, and we always see things and we go, oh, that they're an overnight success. Well, I think we all know there's no overnight successes, and that takes years of our people practicing and dedicating themselves to getting better and better and better. And that's why we have these incredible cardiac arrest survival rates. But I'd say it's been a 10-year journey to get there. So thank you for all the support here. And there's very real lives, very real differences that will go on for decades. So thank you.
So for our new,
yes. Yep. And they were all there, and they all got to meet with them, and they all got to talk about what they saw. Apparently his wife at some point videotaped him while he was not alive. And he said, that's a weird video to watch. I don't think a lot of us get that opportunity. So yeah, that was an interesting sidebar.
No.
Oh yeah, all the units were there, but we brought everybody came and met them at Station 10 today. But yes, yes, all units. Yeah, many other units were there. Battalions, MSOs, aid, medics, engines, ladders. Yeah, the whole regular team was there doing the resuscitation.
Right. I think just that people probably know.
Oh.
Not just one unit going there.
Oh. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
That's why important that we have that many stations around.
Yes. Yep. Thank you.
just to close in, and for the people that don't know that might be watching, or for our new liaisons, Keeler Corner Fire Station 10 is at 150th Street, 6th Street Southwest and Highway 99. So other stations came to help with that event. And this is the type of call that leads into our 61.5% survivability rate from witness CPR that we reported earlier this year. So great job by our crews. It's a great way to connect with the community. And these are the things that, you know, when the chiefs in the room that were part of responding to these calls in the past. We didn't have this, both for our responders to, you know, really re-engaged with the communities. I guess at some point, re-engage with the people that they've saved their lives, and also build those bridges and thank each other, right? You just move on to the next call. So it's good for our crews. It's what we're trying to instill here in the culture of our environment, and really, you know, reward and acknowledge people for their hard work, and thank our, you know, our resident taxpayers and the communities we serve. So that's what we're doing here. So thanks for giving that part of the report. And as I close, I just want to, if you haven't, commissioners, seen the news footage of the 3+ alarm brush fire that has extended in Marysville to buildings that's along on I-5, it certainly caused a lot of damage to data structures, a lot of personnel that responded up north. So we'll soon be bringing back an update on our brush engine that you approved in our 2023 budget. We're still working through that issue. But as we talked about a lot last year, it is undeniable that the west side of our state is drying out, that resources that we have asked for and you have thankfully approved for us are needing to get purchased and deployed. And the stresses on our communities are going to increase as we're in the warm months, which truly are May or earlier for brush fires, even into April now. And it's only going to continue through the heat of this August. So with that, I will close my comments for tonight and welcome any questions from myself or staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Vice Chair Rowland.
Just your first comment regarding community events. Were you suggesting that we should hold meetings at a regular time on a different night, or just keep our eyes on the calendars for conflicts and have flexibility?
I've heard that discussion go back and forth, even back when I wasn't part of this organization as the council, that I was, you know, attending those meetings in Mount Lake Terrace or in Briar. And, you know, that would be something that would be the discretion of the commission to think about. But yeah, either you could move it to a different night or maybe make that the event itself. I would think that based on, you know, having a quorum per se, or having to announce a public meeting, that there would be value to be able just to have that instead of the meeting. And I only say this because I'm looking at our agenda, which looks a bit light today, that it might have been a good opportunity. I know how hard that we all work to try to engage the community. And that an opportunity there for our crews was there. And I know some commissioners may have had the opportunity to make some of the events, but if we're going to try to really outreach and continue to serve our cities as well as our unincorporated areas, and there's a lot of opportunity to make friends and meet people. So your call, but it's historically has caused a problem. And I just saw it a little bit more tonight.
If I may.
Yes.
Since I'm one of the cities where we have done that, our council, if we had pressing business that needed to be taken on that night, has changed their meeting time to the end. I will say I was the person who had to run around Briar Park and tell them all it was time for them to go to to go to City Hall. So that's a little difficult, and I'm assuming you would all be spread out. But we also have canceled our meetings that are held on Tuesday nights. Well, we canceled tonight, but didn't need to because we had to cancel National Night Out. But you know, we've done that in the past as well, because National Night Out seems to be a huge event for our citizens. Particularly, they're very upset that we're not holding it tonight, and it would be a great opportunity for all of you to get out and meet the people in the different communities, I think. So
I guess calendar is trying to schedule things is always hard. So I was just curious, is Tuesday night just a common night for events, and Wednesdays and Thursdays and Fridays?
So this Tuesday, specifically National Night Out, for most cities, this is the one where I think Chief was referring to, is it's historically this Tuesday night, and it's been for the last many years. There's a couple cities that do it on a Monday, but the majority do National Night Out on Tuesday, and it's this specific Tuesday, and it has been for many years.
So you were referring more to National Night Out and not that there's regularly events on Tuesday nights that are conflicting and causing issues?
No, I'm talking about National Night Out. I mean, I think with the 5 cities that currently in, we can't really pick a night anymore that doesn't conflict with somebody else's schedule, other than maybe Thursdays. But again, your guys' discretion. So
we moved the meeting for like the general elections, so that's how I interpreted it.
Yeah, I guess I misunderstood that there was other events that our meetings had conflicted with in the past, so I apologize.
Thank you for asking.
Get some history here. National Night is basically about safety, so police and fire, which is always show up, fire trucks and everything else.
Give your microphone on.
Yeah.
Commissioner Chan.
Commissioner Chan.
I'm afraid of microphone. Okay. So National Night is really for public safety. That's why critical for fire and police to be showing up. And I saw traditionally they have McCollum Park. Actually, Chief Withers was sitting there in the dunk. They throw the ball and so maybe I thought, hey, you don't want to go up there and get dunked. So that is fun with the public interaction. So I definitely, I guess, would you guys will know, well, maybe next time when you go to a meeting, when you schedule a meeting with the chair, you should really mention that and changing the day rather than, afterwards. Yeah.
No, we've talked about it before and it really came to light tonight, especially with the two new liaisons here and, just thinking about how important this is, it's something to be considered by the commission. And if I have the opportunity, I'll certainly bring it up next year again. Right. But all right. Thank you, Commissioner Chan.
I like that suggestion. That was why I was a few minutes late. I was at the Mill Creek one down the road. So last year I went to the City of Linwood National Night Out. So I think it's good for us to get out there and socialize. Thank you, Chief, for the report. Maxwell, thank you for the information on Station 10. Sean Reed gave me an update while I was there at Mill Creek about that. So that was really impressive. On to the legal report with Attorney Matt Paxton.
Good evening. Good evening, commissioners, and thanks for being patient with me while I had a little bit of technical difficulties joining the meeting. But over the last month, South County Fire has continued to have legal work. We have focused our efforts on consolidation issues, real estate matters, including the potential purchase of the Valley Village building, or property that we'll discuss later this meeting. There's been employment matters, public works matters, and of course, contracts that we've reviewed for South County Fire. That's taken up the bulk of our time for South County's work. Happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, that would conclude my legal report.
Commissioners, any questions? All right, you got off light tonight, Matt. Thank you.
Thank you.
On to the union report with President Moore.
Good evening, commissioners. Just wanted to kind of go over a recap a little bit. Last week, our group was busy. We went up to a burn camp. It was for kids that are burn survivors, and our local sponsored a lunch for them. We had our members go up and serve them lunch. We've also got a few events coming up here. I don't have the dates solidified yet, but we're going to be doing some more field to boot events around the area. The one we had in Mill Creek went really good and was a good success. So we appreciate the business there that had helped us out with providing the space to do that. Outside of that, commissioners, I was curious, never heard back from any of you guys. We sent the video on the PFAS documentary and was just curious if any of you had the chance to watch that yet. And if you had any questions on that.
I haven't had a chance to watch it. Anybody else? Okay. We have our homework. Thank you, President Moore.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Just making sure. All right. Thank you for the report. On to unfinished business with CFO Bothwell. 2024 preliminary expenditures forecast.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, commissioners and liaisons. I have a brief presentation for you. All right, so tonight I am presenting the 2024 status quo expenditure forecast. I'm going to go through just a little bit of background, then I'm going to share with you the forecasting method used. I'm going to share 4 notable assumptions used in the forecast, and then I will, of course, share the results. And then at the end there, I'll talk about the long-term forecast update that results from the status quo expenditure forecast. So a little bit about why we do this and why it's important. The status quo expenditure forecast is the predicted cost to provide current services at current levels of services without any extra. So what we're doing is we're forecasting our costs to provide what we're currently doing without any of those discretionary items that we often put in the budget. And the reason that we do it early in the budget process is because it informs the organization about the costs, the ongoing costs of providing services, and provides a baseline for budget development. So a lot of our effort during budget season goes into talking about changes and planning for the next year. And so this just gives us foundation for those discussions. So I have parsed the forecasting process into five steps. So we start with the adopted budget. So the 2023 adopted budget was our starting point. We then take out all the one-time items or non-recurring items that are in the budget. So we end up with just the things that are required to fund ongoing services. And then we group expenditures based on the nature of expenditure and external factors affecting those changes. So we would go in and we carve out represented salaries and wages separate from non-represented salaries and wages, and that would represent two of the groups. We do similar things with benefits and other charges or expenditures. Then we apply the best available data to predict changes in the next year. So this is just an opportunity to tell you that we are working with predictions here. We're just trying to predict the future. So precision is kind of inherently elusive in this process. But we do the best we can with the forecasts and historical data, and we apply that data to the expenditure groups. And the result is the status quo forecast. So there's 4 assumptions that we use in developing the 2024 status quo forecast that I want to share with you. The first one is the cost of living adjustment, or the COLA. We use 4.5% for all employees. About 87% of our employees are, their COLA is determined by the contract. And that is at 4.5%. So we don't have there's no discretion exercise there. The other 13% though are not covered by a contract. And so the 4.5% is the assumption we used. It aligns with what we've done historically, but there is some discretion that the chief and the board will exercise in that actual number. We assume that benefits increase at the rate of total salaries and wages increase. That's pretty standard, except medical. So medical, we've assumed is going to go up by 8%, and that's aligned with our self-insurance plan. Asset replacement strategy is the same as in 2023. So you may recall during 2023 budget development, we made some changes to the way that we were saving for asset replacements. That's continued into 2024 in the status quo forecast, and it's fully funded. And then the final item is that staffing for attrition, the attrition policy is implemented in this budget. And so you may recall back in May when we adopted the comprehensive financial management policies that we put 12 weeks of post-academy salaries funding for that into the policies, so that if our retirements and other attrition didn't occur on the same day as the academy graduated, we'd have some wiggle room there. And so that's implemented in the status quo budget as well. So the results of the forecast is that overall costs are forecasted to increase by 5.9%. Our annual operating budget is about $100 million. So that represents about $5.9 million. 80% of our operating costs are attributable to employee costs. And so as you might expect, the primary driver of the increase is the employee cost. And that includes the cost of living adjustment that I described, merit and step increases, increased benefit costs, and the attrition planning policy that I just spoke about. When you put that together with the status quo revenue forecast that I presented a few weeks ago, we're forecasting a deficit based on the status quo of $2.7 million. So this table just shows kind of where the breakdown of the additional costs. So you can see about 76%, or almost a little over 3/4 of the increase is attributable to employee costs, and the other 24% is for services and supplies. And then this final slide is just what happens when we plug that data into the long-term forecast, so the 6-year financial forecast that we work on. And what it tells us is that the 2024 status quo deficit is manageable with current reserves. And what that means is that if we adopted this status quo budget, we have reserves that are adequate to fund the deficit that I spoke about, and then still have meet the minimum fund balance target that was recently increased in May from 60 days operating reserve to 90 days operating reserve. So we're still good with meeting that target. The other observation is that despite predictions of cooling inflation, and you'll notice in your packet materials, the forecast for 25 and beyond, economists are forecasting that inflation cools off significantly back down to 2.5% to 3% from 25 to 29. Despite that, the annual deficit is forecasted to grow from 25 to 29. And then starting in 2025, it becomes difficult to meet the minimum fund balance target. And that just highlights the need for long-term revenue planning, which is a project that we've been working with you on already, and is kind of running concurrent with the budget season. So that's the presentation. There are some additional details in your packet materials, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, CFO Bothwell. Commissioners, any questions? Vice Chair Rowland?
So you said that the minimum fund balance target for previous years was set, was 60 days and it's moved to 90 days?
Correct.
Does that mean that, I guess, if I had looked at this exact same report last year, we would have looked a lot better off, but then changing.
Is your microphone?
Oh, apologies. Sorry, that just derailed my train of thought here.
60 days out looks better.
So since we went 60 days to 90 days, our outlooks in the past would have shown us still not running a deficit, or we would still be running a deficit, but we'd be significantly above our funds targets. But by changing it to 90 days, now it looks like we're closer to, I guess, the scary red line.
Yes, that's that's a great observation. That's exactly what it would show. So it doesn't change the amount of money we're spending. It just shows how much we're setting aside to make sure that we can kind of cover the expenses that come in that first part of the year when we don't have property tax revenue and some of those things. So it represents, the change is about $7.5 to $8 million. And so we would, instead of saying 2025, we start to have problems with the minimum fund balance target, we'd be saying probably 26, 27.
Gotcha. And I guess what was the kind of the rationale between before for that change? It does kind of significantly alter the forecast and the outlook. Is it just better standard practices? Are we being extra cautious? Is it combination of all that stuff?
The historical best practice is that 60 days is the kind of the minimum for any local government to have. But that's just the starting point. So we need to look at the factors that are specific to our local government. And so since we are we're so reliant on property tax, it's more than 2/3 of our revenue. And even like the benefit charge comes in with property tax. So it's so much of our revenue comes in because of the county or the county that collects our taxes, it comes in like May, that we need to make payroll and have money set aside to cover those expenses for the first part of the year. And so that's why it's sort of our individual the factors that are specific to our local government that led to increasing it to 90 days.
Gotcha. Did that cause problems in the past that we're aware of? Just curiosity.
We did an analysis and it was kind of close sometimes. So no, it didn't cause problems where we were carrying a negative fund balance at year end or anything like that. But it's possible that we could run a negative cash balance in the general fund if we were really close in say late, probably the second payroll in April could be problematic and stuff. So this just gives us a little insurance. This organization has been really conservative with fund balance in the past anyway. And so there's always been enough money there to cover those expenses. But if we were to get down to the 60 days, it could be problematic for us.
Gotcha. Only reason I'm asking is because we're coming in, we're having a lot of discussions around, when we're going to be going to the voters. And I want to make sure that, because it's a recorded meeting and people may be watching this, in the future, looking at, kind of the forecasting, why that goalpost may have been moved or anything like that, so that it's not, just attributed to wanting to come to the ballot box quicker or anything like that. So it sounds like it was done with the right motivations, and nothing really changes as far as kind of the plans that we're working on to try to figure out how we're going to deal with this deficit going forward. So thank you.
Yeah, and I would just add, I think it's a great observation. And the thing I would add is that when you're using fund balance for operations, that's really considered like a one-time infusion. And so so our deficit compounds year over year. And so if you do that 1 year, that's fine, but then you're going to have to go back to the well the next year. And so the problem catches up to you really quickly. And so, just to add that.
Yeah, totally.
Just from the history perspective, one of the reasons 60 days worked prior, right? A lot of things have changed. We brought in the city of Mountlake Terrace or Mill Creek, now the city of Mountlake Terrace and Briar, realized the service contracts that we have with those cities paid 3 months ahead of time. So we got the first 3 months of the year of the contract in January, and then we got the next round 1st of April. So we got the contracts paid up front, and which gave us some flexibility prior to CFO Bothwell arriving to the RFA. We had the revenue stream was a little bit different, which allowed us to do some different things with ending cash balance and the cash carryover that CFO Bothwell is talking about. And as a result of Mill Creek now coming on board, Cost of doing business has gone up because of what's happened over the last few years with inflation. Now that the city of Montlake Terrace and Bry are on board, and we're looking, potentially, hopefully at the city of Edmonds coming on board, the dollars that we were getting up front, and in quarterly increments, we're not getting any more either, which does weigh into CFO and his staff doing the work and weighed into that increasing to 90 days because our cash flow changed as a result of cities annexing in, just as a result of where we were, the last 15 years with our current contracts. So there's been some fundamental changes as a result of our revenue streams that also contribute to the work and the analysis that CFO Bothwell did and the reasons we needed to go to a 90-day versus a 60-day to add some context from the history.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you.
I have a quick question. Are we still using Cushman's forecasting, or are we using something else?
No, we're not using the Excel thing that he did, but it's very similar to what we're doing.
Could you Cushman's analysis for us?
Okay, he used to be a concept. Actually, he was a CFO slash.
Okay, can you turn on your mic and then go ahead and after you're in what that is, can you ask your question?
Okay, Cushman used to be our basic accounting manager and everything else. He developed a really extended spreadsheet, basically pretty well known to the industry. But anyway, he's kind of retired now. But we again, CFO, you get more sophisticated. But one thing I want to clarify that is that your basically 90 days cash is not just for government, for any industry. Any good CFO will know, 90 days is a very good day to safety. The difference is that most of the corporations have line of credit, right? If they don't have money, they draw on it. But we do not have line of credit, so to speak. So actually, this is really simple math. $100 million, 25%, $25,000. The question I have you for, did you, on the future revenue, I assume you project now, not on the contract, but the actual tax assessment for Montlake Terrace and Briar?
Yeah, that's correct. In the forecast, in the status quo forecast, we actually put a separate line in there for annexations. We did it for Mill Creek last year, and this year it's Briar and Montlake Terrace.
Right.
And same thing for benefit charge.
Yeah. So historically, during the recession, we really do not have any money. I mean, not even talk about, that's when and the board decided we have at least 60 days, around roughly 17% of the operation budget in there. And that's why Chief Howitz probably know a couple of years ago, right? We started, when we projecting, it's terrible. Even the cash we have to really cut back and to be basically a status quo for the budget. And
are you talking about when you were chair, Commissioner Chan, of the recession?
No, not in recession. Just a couple of years ago when this financial manager come a presentation, it was looked terrible. So we have to really go back and go back to status quo and not spending all the money. Now, if Edmonds coming in, then we're going to have more revenue, not more tax resources. So that will help us a little bit on that. So, but that is a number that we have to really constantly looking at. And that's why we ask for projection for that many years. Because one thing I think is that I got to caution everybody, this is before any bond payment for the $250 million capital facility plan. So if the starting bond, that number is going to be
drastically different,
right? Completely different. So I really caution. That's why I'm suggesting we got to revisit the $250 million capital facility plan. How can we reducing it? And that's I'm suggesting leasing, renting rather than building building a station. So that's, I think we need to revisit that because that will be really heavily. I just reminding people for our last bond by this frame was $19 million. So it's a huge jump. So the board needs to fully aware of that. But thank you for giving this. This kind of gives some idea when we do the budget. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Chan. Anyone else? AC Eastman, thank you for the background information. That was helpful for me. All right. On to unfinished business B. Update on Value Village property purchase and sale agreement with AC Eastman.
So good evening, Chair and the board. So I'm just going to give a little bit of a quick update on where we were and where we now are with Value Village. I've got legal counsel Matt Paxton has worked with me on this topic, and so he will fill in the blanks and be able to talk about the legal things that we're talking about as we go. So I'll start real quick. I want to say 2 years ago, as part of the capital cities planning that we were doing back then, and the need for property for infill fire stations, i.e. specifically what we call the Heights infill fire station, which is in the south part of the RFA, Alderwood Mall Parkway, which is central, i.e. Near the mall, the board, and then we were also looking for Station 22 also. The board authorized us to go look for Alderwood Mall Parkway property, which we are currently actively doing, and there'll be a brief to the board specifically about that in the near future. We purchased Station 22 property. And as a result of our relationship with Verdant or Hospital District 2, the Value Village property, which is at 216th and 99, we knew that they wanted to sell. And so it met the needs and the criteria. And it's actually a pretty ideal location for what we identified. We identified as the Heights station in the capital cities plan. We also identified that in our standard as a cover document that went along with the capital cities plan moving forward. And so we got permission to start a conversation with them. We did a non-binding letter of intent to enter into exclusive negotiations for acquisition of the property. If you recall, we did a preliminary environmental, and we found that they had an underground storage tank that evolved into doing a true phase 1 environmental study. We were able to ultimately secure funding from Ecology, which was actually money passed through EPA through Ecology to do that part of the study. We did find that there was contaminants on site, petroleum products, solvents. They were reportable to Ecology, which has been done. We did and got additional monies to do a gap analysis with Ecology. That was completed and at the end of June. And so we have a pretty good idea of what sits on the site and what we're dealing with. We are at a place though where the Hospital District 2 commissioners are anxious to move forward with the sale of the property. I think staff and in consult with Rich Davis, Max Paxton, and I'm going to say Holly Stanford from Rich's office. And we're at a place where we feel we know enough information to enter into the conversations about a purchasing and sales agreement. And if you read page 49 of your packet, what that will allow us to do is it'll allow us to let the commissioners at Hospital District 2 know we're serious about the property. But this is not going to be your traditional purchase and sale agreement. There's still work that needs to be done. For example, we know what's happened on the site. We don't know how far the contamination actually goes, and that's an important aspect. So there's further investigation that needs to be done that would be part of a purchase and sale agreement. Hospital District 2 on the property. But the ultimate goal, and I want to make sure I do the term right, the ultimate goal is to have a consent, a purchase, or let's see, prospective purchaser consent decree, which is something that we get from Superior Court. So it's a legal action, and there's several components to go along with that. Part of that is the investigation off-site, determine how far the contamination goes. It deals with cleanup plans and that associated with ecology, the ecology signs off on. And then once the consent decree is then executed, what it does is it checks the boxes, and and Matt, I'm going to say this and correct me if I'm wrong, but it puts us in a position, if all those things are done, that it puts us where no further legal action can happen against the RFA. And so there's several pieces that need to happen. This won't be a fast process, but I think in order for us to move forward and do the continued investigation that needs to be done, we need to enter into these conversations with Hospital District 2 to make sure that the parameters on a purchase and sale agreement they'll actually accept, or it doesn't make sense for us to go find and secure dollars to be able to do that work. Now, I will tell you, we are putting in for a grant. We submitted for this one 2 years ago. It's a $200,000 grant from ecology. We have a really actually good chance to get it. And what this would do is it would fund the further investigation of the offsite, which will help with the rest of the work we're doing. And it'll be dollars from ecology, which I guess I want to say ecology has been an unbelievable partner in working with the RFA on this issue with us. And there's a little bit of dollars associated in there with planning. I know some of the things we've talked about with that site is the potential of putting a fire station that maybe is a multi-story, and maybe provide some other opportunities for those in our community that are underserved. This would allow a little bit of planning money to actually look at the feasibility of that as far as the grant goes. But not to go way off topic, but what we're asking for tonight is authorization to go start officially talking with Hospital District 2 and see if we can come to terms that are agreeable to us and agreeable to them. This has been a collaborative effort with Hospital District 2. We provided all the information that we've realized from the ecology and the study work we've done and the investigative work we've done, and we've shared with them on multiple occasions. So we're doing this down a joint path. They're partners of ours, and they've been very good partners of ours, and we're going to continue that path. But really, for us to continue, it's time to enter into a formal purchase and sale agreement negotiations. And we need the authorization from the board to actually start that, realizing that it allows us to go have the conversation with them and negotiate the terms. Those then would come back to the board, and we'd have conversation about what those mean, how that impacts everything. And to be honest, we have an executive session if needed, if we talk about price and such, but we're not at a place where we know what that is. The statute's pretty clear on how governmental entities can sell property. The statutes are clear on that. Where this gets a little bit interesting is the cost of cleanup. And so we don't have what that would be yet. And so we'd like to go down the path of negotiating, and there'll be a time at some time in the future through that process where we'd come back and have an executive session to talk to the board prior to this being fully executed, and ask for you guys to authorize the purchase and sale, to have conversations about those other detail pieces that we don't quite know yet as a result of the further investigation that needs to be done that will inform the rest of that conversation, if that makes sense. So with that, I'm going to pause, and I see Matt. And Matt, if there's anything that I missed or spoke out of school, will you set the record straight? Or if you have any other comments that you want to provide, please do.
Yeah, thanks, GB Smin. We're talking right now about the Model Toxic Control Act. This is a Washington state law that is particularly relevant when we have petroleum products on site like this. We have a lot of experience in our firm cleaning up these, and the two risks that we really are trying to mitigate here is one, what is the risk of the cleanup? What's going to be required to clean up this property? The consent decree or the work that goes into getting a consent decree will get the Department of Ecology on board and say, yes, this is what we're going to be requiring for cleanup. And the second concern and the risk we're trying to mitigate is future liability, because the Model Toxic Control Act makes the owner of the property, even if they haven't contaminated the property, liable, even if that's off-site. So this could have gone into drinking water, could have gone into soils next door. We don't know the extent of that. And once we do get a consent decree, that will limit our liability. We will know the South County Fire could take ownership of that property without risk of future liability, because it will involve a significant cleanup commitment. And South County Fire is in a good position to make that commitment, because there are funds available for public agencies to clean up these types of sites. And so we can get it partially funded through the Department of Ecology. And so it is a process to go through to get this consent decree. And it would be a contingent on closing on this property to make sure that we have that consent decree. But it's very doable, and we're just going along we think that the next step in this process is to start negotiating the purchase and sale agreement. So with that, I see a few hands, so maybe Bob and I can field some questions.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll start off with the Commissioner Chan and then Vice Chair Rowland.
Well, I see that we have a executive session here. This is a negotiation, this is a purchase. So I think it's appropriate for that, right?
So my understanding is the only thing we could talk about in executive session is cost. And we don't know, the state law is clear on how government entities can do that. And so the rest of the stuff, the other pieces that we put in the purchase sale agreement, according to legal counsel, is not actually covered under executive session. So it's not appropriate to go into executive session for that. So the only thing we could go into executive session is the cost of the property. And there's the things that we're talking about putting in the purchase and sale agreement will help inform what the cost of the property is. So we don't have all that information right now.
But isn't the strategy part of negotiation? That's why we're on the agenda here. It says executive sessions to consider a selection site and acquisition of real estate.
Right. And my understanding with legal counsel is based on the conversation we need to have with you tonight. It's the dollars and cents associated with purchasing the property can be talked about in exec session. The rest of the conversation that we're talking to you about is not, according to legal counsel, is not subject and not a executive session topic.
But how about the strategy though? I mean, if you're negotiation purchase something, the strategy should be part of the.
I'm going to defer to Mr. Paxton on that topic.
We actually have a rough estimate what it could be, the consequences and everything else.
So for executive session, we can discuss, we have to discuss the cleanup here in open session, but how that cleanup might affect the price.
Right.
Something we can discuss in executive session, having now discussed already the cleanup component of that. And then other aspects that about the price itself. Negotiation strategies, I'm not sure exactly what you intend to discuss there and whether it be an executive session, but the statute and the law is pretty narrow in that it needs to be about the price and how it affects the price.
Well, but the price, but also strategy, right? I mean, so that's your estimate, because you're doing a purchase, you don't have a strategy. Okay, that's my limit. That's my what's my floor? What's my up there? That type of thing, right?
Floor and anything on price, if that's what you mean by strategy,
right?
Like what's the max we're going to offer? What's the minimum? Could be discussed in executive session.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had experience underground in my real profession. There's a lot of federal funds, but those are not 100% guarantee, right? So at the end of the day, they might not able to get a fund. Yeah. While we're doing a lot of this depending, I think need to be contingency on we get the fund and that type of thing. Otherwise, you get stuck in it, the liability part of it. So that's why, I mean, that make sure that with escape clause in there, that not to our liking, we do not have a limited fund, because I know that many programs maybe have changed now. The limit for doing certain limit amount, they're not basically open checked, whatever it took to clean it.
No, you're right. And as we get closer to those conversations, we'll bring that back. But at the end of the day, yeah, staff's 100% on the same page you are. And at the end, based on where we are and the investigative work that needs to be done and going after the dollars to cover that work needs to go done, we want to make sure that there's some very specific things that legal counsel was telling you that we need to have as contingents to this. And we want to go have a conversation with Hospital District 2, because if they're not willing to have those as contingents of the property, then for all intents and purposes, we're done and we go look for another piece of property. If they're willing to let that move forward, then we actually will go do the additional investigative work, which will then tell us what the true, I mean, we know what it costs to clean up and prep the site, depending on the different variations. We have estimates for that. But the reality is that's just on the lot line.
Right.
But the contamination piece, we don't know how far it goes. We need to get that informed. So then we know what the cost of the full cleanup is, and then start having a conversation about price, right? Once we know that. And the one thing I do know, and this is statute driven, is governmental entities. It's the statute's pretty clear on how they sell their property and how they get appraisals and you know, how much less than what appraised value it is that they can sell it at. So we have bookends within the statute. It's the rest of the story that we don't have all the information on yet. And for us to get the rest of the story, we feel we need to start having a legitimate conversation about purchase and sale. And for me, it's to make sure that Hospital District 2 is willing to go down that path and willing to have what we need to have that was described tonight and actually better described by legal counsel. And if they're not willing to do that, then I think our conversation's over and we move on for a new site.
But I think we need to talk about the cost of the investigations and all that, right? So we make sure that we're sharing that. I know that you said before they're sharing some of it, or some of them are not, or whatever. So that need to be a huge consideration. You could send a few $1 million just to investigate.
No, well, we know. I mean, I can tell you the next round of investigations is about $250,000 to get us, according to the consultants, from A to Z. Right. And that gets what we're looking at in the, at least what I'm understanding from what Matt and the legal team has said we need to have, and to close the loop and meet all the check boxes that he's asking for to be contingent before we close. Right. So we know the ballpark of what that is now. That's based on assumptions that we have.
Right.
If we go and go through two aquifers instead of one aquifer and find out that it hit the groundwater 200 feet below the site and it traveled 16 miles, it's a whole different conversation, right? And changes the dynamics right? Although we're not anticipating that being the case based on what we know, but we still have to do our due diligence and do that work. And we have a good idea of what the costs are. And we have the ability right now and a good shot to get those dollars from ecology the 1st of January of 2024 to provide that work and do the off-site, I'm going to say off the property boundaries investigation to determine how big a footprint we have of the contaminants. And then we'll be able to put the rest of the costs associated with that and have what that is, and then inform the rest of the process and deal with how that works.
Yeah, I would like to say there's some cost sharing on the investigation, because they want to know too. If they don't sell it to us, they sell it to someone else, right? So I think that needs to be considered.
Well, but yeah, and that's kind of why we're at the point of the purchase and sale agreement, because we can make this all contingent on what we're doing. We can have those conversations as part of the purchase and sale agreement.
Cost sharing to me is an investigation. Otherwise, it can
Yeah.
cost another $100,
Yeah.
another 500, a million, and then
Once
we're
again,
not going anywhere.
we've been working diligently for 2 years on this.
Right.
And Commissioner Chan, those have been the primary concerns of staff. And quite frankly, Hospital District 2 knows, we've been very transparent with them. I know, we've met with their full commission twice. I think the chair's been there both times, the chief's been there both times. We've been very, very transparent with them. And they also realize that at the end of the day, the issue right now is their issue. We're in a position that it's a perfect site for us. It works very, very well for everything we've done. And we're at a place in time with the preliminary investigative work we've done, the phase 1, phase 2, and the gap is we're at a place where we're comfortable from a staff's perspective, taking the consultant work, having briefed legal counsel on that and their expert, Holly in their office, to now go to this next piece. And what it really does is we're not doing these non-binding agreements with Hospital District 2. Hospital District 2 wants to sell the property. And so part of this is for us to move forward and say its site's good. We truly do still want to move forward. And we want to start entering into negotiation for purchase and sale. And like I said, Matt told you the things that we have to have as part of closing, which Commissioner Chan addresses the things you're talking about. Right. At the end of the day. And once we go through this, there'll be more touch points back with the board, because you'll ultimately have to approve the purchase sale agreement. And I'm sure this is a negotiations that Hospital District 2 is going to want some things that, quite frankly, we're going to have to bring back to the board and have conversations about. This just gets the ball started. I think it shows good faith to Hospital District 2 and moves us forward. And you'll be hearing from us again, and my guess is an executive session to talk about some of these details, Commissioner Chan, because ultimately you guys have to approve the purchase sale agreement was ultimately completed. And so this is just the start. This is not something that'll happen overnight. This one's a little bit more.
I just to clarify, I definitely supporting this. I can see the whole Swedish hospital and then the whole area, basically the Pill Hill, the first hill in Seattle, with similar thing. And the multi-level building, I know that some government agency already expressing their interest to sharing the building, which is a very good way to basically have revenue offset our expenses, everything. I totally support it. But the devil's in the detail, right? I just make sure that we are protecting ourselves. That's what I'm saying.
And clearly, I think you guys haven't had the privilege of meeting Holly Stanford, which is one of the attorneys in Richard Davis's office. She's had her whole career doing this work. She's very, very good at it. She actually understands the work that the consultant group has done, and the challenges that we are dealing with. That we have a really good team to ensure that the RFA will be in the position the RFA needs to be in. And if we don't get to that agreement, they'll let us know and we'll take the appropriate action. So
negotiation, we need to willing to walk out.
Yeah,
we have limit.
Okay. Absolutely 100% clear. Right. We know what we need to do to protect the RFA's interest. And quite frankly, we understand I understand the dollars and cents pretty well. And rest assured the RFA's interests will be well protected. And I'm quite confident in Richard, Matt, and Holly with our legal team that we have the best people to ensure that our interests are absolutely well protected. Just realize this is not a quick thing. This is potentially a 12 to 18 month process before, even if we had a purchase and sale agreement that we're agreeing to, it may take 12 to 18 months to get us to the place where we can close as a result of the work we need to do with ecology and Superior Court and some other things to execute all the documents and all the things that legal counsel has talked to you about tonight. So it's not, once again, this is to get the ball rolling. And honestly, it doesn't even get it to the cliff and roll it down the hill. It gets the conversation started. And as needed, we will come back and brief the board as appropriate. And once again, we will make sure you know what we're doing and how we're doing it, and as we go down. So with that, I'll pause.
Vice Chair Rowland and then Liaison Todd.
Actually, I'm gonna cede my time to the more experienced.
I don't know about more experience. So to try to bring this back up another level, this is a policy decision, not a bunch of administrative details. I think we're really careful to get into that. I think what you're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, you're asking this body, should we start the discussions? Is this body interested in moving forward? Similarly, the hospital district's also saying, does their elected body want to move forward? And if we don't want to move forward, we don't dance with these guys. There's no point in starting to work out what we're going to wear to the dance. So don't get involved with the details. Right now, Chief is just looking for a motion to say, go ahead and start the discussions. The word is negotiation in here. That maybe trip people up, but it's really the discussions to find out what would be there. And you'd be checking in a lot with this group on what it takes to go on the way. But ultimately, you go to the very last minute and say, nope, we don't want to buy it because it's too much risk. That you always will have that. And that could happen 6, 12, 18 months, 24 months from now when you find out how bad it is or how good it is. Is that about right?
But I thought we
Thanks.
agreed to go ahead. What, 2 years ago, we stopped the whole process?
We gave the non-binding letters of intent that gave us exclusive negotiation on the acquisition of the property. Their board is ready to move down a more formal process to actually show we're serious about purchasing the property. And staff, like I said, all the work we've done, we're ready to move to have that conversation about what needs to be in a purchase sale agreement to determine if they're willing to go down that path, and then continue the work on the, and really at this point in time, what it is it's having a conversation, and really Richard and Matt and Holly were the ones that would end up having a conversation with their legal counsel and start having the conversation. And then they would talk about terms that they need to have in it, what needs to have to even move this forward. And then we'll see where it goes.
Their conversation will be in the weeds, right? And ours will be at the 30,000 policy level.
Yeah. And I would suggest maybe, and you can check me on this, Mr. Eastman, is that if ecology is going to get involved and wants to throw some money at this, they're probably also looking at us and at the hospital district. Are you guys serious? Because they also are not going to go down this dance with offering money if you're not going to be serious to carry it through. They don't want to waste the state's money. So I think that's also probably in there. So they're all looking at us to make this motion, pass this motion.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I guess this is germane to the conversation, even though it's a little outside, I guess I'm going to reiterate, we're having a really good relationship with ecology. And so we had a meeting with them they know this conversation is happening. They know we have the deadline for the grant that we're putting in force the 8th of August. But we're doing things and prepping things, not just for the grant for the investigation planning, but we're also teeing it up to get to the grants that are involving with cleanup and some of the other things that go along with the cleanup process with it. So this is all, staff's doing all this in conjunction, and we're doing that work today. And the sooner we know, one, is the board willing to move forward and continue? That's answer question one. Question two is Hospital District 2 willing to continue forward? Because if one or the other are not, staff's going to put the brakes, and we're not going to waste ecology's time anymore. We're not going to submit for the grant, so other people that submit for it don't get denied because we put in for something we're not going to use. And staff will direct their efforts, quite frankly, at that point in time, to a new site that meets the needs of the facilities plan and the standard of cover. So there's a whole lot of other things happening on the backside that we haven't talked about with regards to, the options for when money comes due, when the timelines come due for both state and federal and partner grants, for cleanup aspects and all those other pieces, are all things that we are moving forward on now in anticipation of the board giving us the authorization and directing us to go start these conversations, and hopefully Hospital District 2 being willing to have those conversations with us on the other side. If that helps, there's a whole lot of other pieces happening that really is into the weeds at the end of the day, but there's lots of moving pieces with regards to where we're going. So that's the rest of the story. If that helps the rest of what staff's doing on behalf of this topic.
There's a lot of administrative work, and you're looking for us just to say, yes, we're still interested. Vice Chair Rowland, did you want the floor still?
Yes. So I guess, and that's the question that we need to figure out here tonight. I mean, it sounds like this has been a long process just to get to this point. And that at a minimum, we're looking at a year and a half just to get to closing, then whatever the cleanup effort is before we're even ready to break ground on building this building. What's the need? What's the time horizon for this? I mean, it's waited 2 years, but how much longer can we wait? Do we have any backup plans started? So if we were to find something from ecology as we go through the second stage, that is, you know, we need to bail because it hit the aquifer, it went 16 miles, whatever the case may be, but we still have a need. And it seems like right now, all of our eggs are in this one basket.
So I guess I'll answer your question because we've talked about this is any of the property we're going to look at along Highway 99 probably has the same issues. It's still going to require us to do ecology stuff. And my guess is because most of where that stuff has been there for so long with so many different occupancies, I don't think we can go from this site, go find a different site. We maybe end up in the same exact place we are just because of the construction and everything that's happened along specifically the route we're looking for. And so we did talk about that. Right now, based on what we found is to get to where we need to get the stuff to close, we're talking about 18 months if everything goes like everybody wants. And then to be honest, I don't think we were going to do anything with that property to improve it until Edmonds is on board anyway. And so those conversations are happening. And quite frankly, when we first started this conversation, we weren't sure Montlake Terrace and Briar were coming as quickly as they did. So we thought we did have some time. And I think once we get, we close on it and get it where it needs to go, then it's a matter of securing funding. And then the cleanup for what we're doing can happen at the same time of construction because it's actually far more economical. And so at that point in time, if it takes us 2 years, if we start today, it takes us 2 years to get this whole process to close and get all the requirements we need to protect the RFA. And I'm going to say at the same time, protect to the best of our ability, Hospital District 2, because we're partners. Then you're talking about the same, 3 to 3.5 year process to construct if we have the money. So does that help what you're talking about? I think, quite frankly, if we found a piece of property or we ended up going down condemnation because nobody was willing to sell within the area we needed, that process would take quite a bit longer. And so right now we have not gone to what an alternate site would be because we'd have to do environmental studies and all those other pieces like we did. And right now this site is still a really, really good site if Hospital District 2 and the RFA can come up with an agreement that's acceptable to both parties and then move the process forward. And I think it's still, in some sense, going to be the fastest timeline for the piece of property that meets our needs. We could get lucky, Commissioner Rowland, and find a piece of property that has no contaminants along 99, but I'm not so sure that's going to be the case at the end of the day. So I don't know if that answers your question or if I skirted your question, but that's where we are and why we've chose to come and say, this is a good site. Here's where we need to go. If we can move and get everybody going, we can have, I think, this process done, I think realistically in 2 years. And then that'll give us time as we continue our facilities conversation, are we going to build an infill fire station? And if so, when and how are we going to fund it? Those are conversations we still need to have. And then once we make the decision to have the funding, it's going to take about 3.5 years. Now that's a traditional fire station. If we look at some of the other options we're talking about and the opportunities we have at that station to do a multi-story building and, partner with some other governmental entities or potentially put some resources in play for the underserved in our community. That may make things take a year longer as a result of a larger building and some of those other things and a little bit more complexity. But that would be welcome decisions on our behalf and moving forward as we go and can make those conversations. One of the benefits we have with that site is the hospital's there. And as you know, and I think Chief has said this before, we always have the opportunity to potentially put a transport unit there in the short term as we go. So we do have some other options. in the short term. As we go, if we need to shore up the EMS response in that area until we get our fixed facility in place, we have some options to be able to do that. You know, depending on what we find and some of the, you know, unforeseen challenges we may face that we'd face in any property that we would require.
All right.
Do you have any more questions?
I think that there's definitely more conversation to be had around, you know, what our, you know, backup plans, because when we first went into this, it was we know that there's underground, you know, storage tank. We don't know if there's a leak. There is some contamination. Now we know there's some contamination, and because of the length of the process, I think we do need to have conversations outside of this, but I think from where we're at right now, it makes sense to move forward with this. I just want to make sure that we're ready for bad news as well as good news. Thank you.
This Commissioner Lawrence has been waiting patiently waiting for a long time.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Chan. Commissioner Lawrence, you have the floor. Thank you for waiting.
Yes, are we, Chief Eastman, are you looking for the motion to be made tonight and a vote taken on that to move ahead?
Yes.
Can someone make that motion? Because I'll second.
Sounds like Commissioner Lawrence, you made a motion to direct staff to start negotiations on a purchase and sale agreement on the Value Village property located at 21558 Highway 99, Edmonds, Washington.
That's right. That's the motion I made. Yes.
All right, thank you. Is there a second? Commissioner Teoflax seconds the motion. Any further discussion?
Actually, I'm really confused because on agenda 14 is an executive session. Is that really the same thing or the different process?
Nope. So we only put that there if we needed it.
Right, as a placeholder, if the commissioners wanted to talk about price and cost, but that does not seem to be the case tonight.
Since they don't have it, so okay, so I'm just confused.
No, so we only put the executive session on as a placeholder if it was required based on the conversation we just had. And I think Commissioner Daniels and the fact that there's a motion and a second, and if it's approved, we probably don't need to have that executive session tonight. And we'll have further conversations as we go down the process. And we'll be coming back to the board on a periodic basis to give you status and updates and where we are. And those at that point in time would be appropriate for executive session.
So at this point, we're not going in with any prices in mind. That's not part of the discussions that you guys are starting with. It's more of coming to terms. Thank you.
As liaison Todd put it, we're wanting to continue the dance.
Yep.
Anything else, Commissioner Lawrence? Did you want to add anything? Your hand is still up.
No, I phrased it, I think, just perfectly, right?
Yes, you did. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. All right, motion carries. Thank you.
Staff, thanks you very much.
On to committee updates. Finance Committee with Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, we're gonna
Do you have a microphone on, Commissioner Chan?
I think we're gonna we're not ready to meet tomorrow, so we're probably most likely delay in 2 weeks. Next week is not available, so third week we will meet.
Thank you. And I don't see Commissioner Fernhoff on. I don't think there's anything to report for intergovernmental. AC Eastman, do you know of anything? Okay, just wanted to confirm. He played a pretty pivotal role in that, so. Still 911, myself, they held a first ever technology summit, and I thought that was really good. I attended it from the standpoint of that my day job is IT consulting, doing data analytics, and so I was curious. I was also the only board member that was there because, again, I was curious about what they talked about as a 2-hour session. Basically, what you had was all the IT directors of the different subscriber agencies in the same room having conversations. First hour was about information security. That almost put me to sleep because it's not very fruitful for me, but and then they covered some other topics that were more interesting. So we do have a finance committee meeting coming up this week, and then we'll have our general meeting the following week. So on to commissioner comments. All right. Want to start off with that Commissioner Kenny is still on vacation, so he has an excused absence tonight. One other thing was that AC Eastman, you mentioned about the Heights property there in the Alderwood Mall area. And as I understand it, Station 11 technically sits on the Mucklefield School District property that we lease. So with that in mind, what about the old Alderwood Middle School? It was constructed in 1966. I graduated from there in 95. And what if we were to maybe enter some sort of agreement where build a fire station on the track and whatnot? Would that be something that could entertain, or is that too far?
You know what, what I would have to do is pull that, have our GIS guru go through and do the work and see. I'm trying to figure out where that is, and I can't picture it in my mind.
Backside of Lowe's.
Oh, yeah, I think I don't think that's going to be in a good location at the end of the day, but
because the field is right there,
yeah,
on the backside of
that
Lowe's.
now, yeah, I think if you're asking my gut and giving it, it's probably not a good move. But that doesn't mean when you do the analysis, sometimes you're fooled. So
get surprised. Okay. I was just thinking because it's no longer Alderwood Middle School. They built the new one there next to Martha Lake Elementary. And so it's more of a transitional school. And I doubt they're ever going to need that field much. So
yeah.
I was just thinking outside the box.
If we could have got the keg property before it was the keg, or the hotel across the street, or the football field from the old Linwood High School you graduated from, all of those sites, really the connection between Alderwood Mall Parkway up to Station 10, access to 405 underneath to Martha Lake Station 21, the backside of that development, that's the key area that we don't have drive time penetration right now from any of those stations that surround it into that growing area of vertical growth and commercial growth. In a nutshell, 20 years ago, we could have got it, but really not a whole bunch of options right now, especially those that are developable or have sewer. Does that help,
yeah,
Bob?
Well, yeah. And so right now, and this will be a brief coming and probably a conversation that we'll have an executive session. And we're looking at just south of Fred Meyer.
On 164th?
On Alderwood Parkway.
Okay.
Right. Is the optimal location when, once again, that when you look at the Manor property station, right? And you in other words, you put all the stations we have identified as infill in place, right around that area is prime for us to put that infill station, what we call Alderwood Mall Parkway Station. And like Chief said, there are some challenges there. So there's some challenges and there's some things we're looking at and we need to stay. We looked at property on the east side of Alderwood Mall Parkway and it's nothing but a swamp and steep. So I would anticipate relatively in the very near future, we'll be having a conversation with you and talking about that area and where we are, what we're doing, and some options we have. We're not quite ready for that conversation yet, but it's coming. So.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Rowland.
Yeah, just got to my notes here. Got a couple quick questions. They may be going back into previous things and then a comment. Just real quick, I noticed. I can ask those questions outside. One thing that might be nice. It's really cool hearing the stories of, all the good that we're doing. We put out the newsletter every few months. We've been talking about scorecards, but, having maybe something in the newsletter of number of lives saved, number of fires put out, things like that, just for community would be kind of cool to see. How many times we resuscitated somebody in a month or two, it's interesting for me, maybe for the public. I don't know. One request for the room here, it would really help me, and I'm sure the other commissioners, with a lot of these conversations that deal with geographic locations and which stations are where, to have a nice big map that we can see our stations on so that we can see where we're talking about as far as locations and areas so that we understand kind of the layout, because often trying to bring it up on the phone or on the laptop during the meeting is kind of not good for just being able to point at something would be nice. So just a thought.
Commissioner Lawrence, you have your hand up.
Yes. Melissa, we still have that map that I asked to be made. Well, you made a map at my request 3 years ago. I think that would help Commissioner Rowland, and we could have that there in the meeting room.
She nodded her head. Yes, she has it. So
Got you covered, Micah.
there we go, Micah. Thank you. All right, and do any of our liaisons wish to say anything?
I notice on your list of upcoming events, an opportunity for all of you to interact with the community is next Wednesday night at Briar Sea Scare Parade.
Yes, that is coming up. I plan to be there with my 4 and 6-year-old. So
I have to give you advertising promotion. That's great fun for small kids. You have small kids, really cute. Yeah. It's a short parade here, but yeah, it's not.
AC Eastman, you wanted to.
If I could, having Montlake Terrace and Briar here for me personally, huge deal. I had the privilege of being part of the organization when we first started the contract negotiations with them and got them in as a contract city, and brought the firefighters from the city of Montlake Terrace into Fire District 1. A monumental, quite frankly, monumental day back then. Fast forward almost 20 years, and I have the privilege of sitting in a board meeting with the representatives from both the city of Briar and the city of Montlake Terrace on the first meeting. Personally, for me personally, I want to say welcome to the team. You've always been part of the team, and for me, it's a great way to be at the end of my career and have some bookends where the beginning was quite frankly bringing you in, and as I get ready to retire, having you in the officially part of our RFA is a huge thing, and quite frankly a great way to be at the end of my career, and one of the great highlights, and so I didn't get the chance to say that before, and I wasn't sure I was actually going to be able to say it. So thanks for let me say that. It's for me personally, it's a huge thing. And I'm humbled to be in the same room and at the first meeting. You're part of this organization, and so welcome and thank you. And I will let you know, Paula was a huge force in the city of Briar. And between her and Mayor Kay and the work they did to make this happen, I say thank you, because I don't think it would have happened without you. And is Jesse, right? I will tell you, Stefan was unbelievable. And for a guy who was looking to retire, and I know how many hours and I know what he did. I know how he prepped, and I know how he set the city forward. And I don't know very many people who, quite frankly, the last 2 weeks of their employment career put in the hours that man did on behalf of the city, the residents of Montlake Terrace, and quite frankly, the work he did. And I'm proud to have sat side by side with him and have done that work. And unfortunately, he retired and left. And I've never had the opportunity to thank him. And so I know he's not listening, but it's important to know who made this happen. And from the city of Montlake Terrace perspective, Stephen Clifton was unbelievable, and quite frankly, worked as hard as he's ever worked in his whole career, quite frankly, the last 2 weeks of his employment for the city until he went and had a well-deserved retirement. So Chair, thank you for letting me do that. And again, welcome. And it's a privilege to be at this table with you.
Well, we owe you the thanks as well, because you and I worked very closely together on this. And without you, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So I'm glad that I'm sitting here at the table too, and able to help you maybe go out on retirement. Did you guys take a vote on that? Is he allowed to retire? Have you voted on that yet?
No.
I think that you should take care of that and then don't let him go.
Yeah, but no, we're working on some kind of law, pass a law that he can't retire.
There we go.
This wasn't about me.
Yeah, him and Thad both. You
Right.
just need to vote that they, they're perpetually here.
That's right.
Well, okay, I want to just one last comment. For Montlake Terrace, I'm who promoting balance sheet, right? We said that we contract you, we took on a liability. That's Chief Redding. That was a joke. And then of course we got asset here. We got Hovis in here. So we balance it out with Bonnie Terrace. Really love, I was just overjoyed that you guys are here. Yeah.
Yes, I meant to say welcome earlier, and very much I had one-off conversations with each of you in your offices, and I enjoyed that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. Vice Chair Roll.
Two things that I'd like to see about getting on future agendas that I wanted to bring up tonight. Number one is looking at the budget. I did notice that volunteer compensation has not changed, even with changing inflation. I don't know when the last time it was adjusted, but I know we've talked about that in the past, kind of in passing, and the fact that we've had 4 people running the jobs of 24 people and how to talk about that. But I don't think the conversation ever kind of got had around it. So I did want to look at that, one of the things I wanted to say is I was notified last week that I'll be brought on as a volunteer firefighter. As a commissioner, I don't take compensation, can't take compensation. So there's no conflict of interest around it, but I do want to make sure that, as we're looking at cost of living, as we're looking at trying to recruit people, the compensation is part of that discussion. And if it hasn't moved, and it definitely didn't move in a year where we had record inflation and ever cost of everything going up, it's something that would behoove us to look at. So that's the one thing that I wanted to put on the agenda.
On the agenda or under the chief's budget?
Hopefully on the agenda, so we could just talk about it, at least have a discussion around, or be part of his budget. But I know it's something that's been sitting, and since I noticed that there was no change in it,
it seems more administrative than legislative.
It's possible that would be the best course of action, but yeah.
Commissioners, you know how I feel about the program and happy to look at it. The last time I think it was adjusted was based when legislative issues had come up at the board level, and it was set in coordination with the committee that was formed. I don't think that's necessary to be able to go back to set it from, the 400 and 600 it is currently, to look at what indexing it to inflation back from 2019 would look like. Happy to do that. We'll need some legal counsel on that to make sure we're not bridging into employment status, of course.
Understood.
And some complex issues, but I think we can work that into the budget discussions if that's the will of the board.
Please move forward with those discussions.
Directed. Thank you.
For some reason, the second thing went in my brain and went back out of it again. So I'll address it.
You can always email it.
I'm sure. Thank you.
All right. With that, it is 8:37 and I adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.